In a tragedy that would shatter hearts, the story unfolds in Mitaka City, Tokyo, Japan. The victim, a vibrant young woman named Saya Suzuki, born in 1995, was adored by all who knew her, thanks to her radiant beauty and endearing personality. Saya Suzuki was born into an artistic family, a nurturing environment filled with screenwriters, directors, and artists. Her mother, a talented artist herself, showcased her work in various exhibitions. Surrounded by creativity and love, Saya thrived in this warm, close-knit atmosphere. At just 10 years old, Saya's remarkable talent caught the attention of an entertainment company. She was offered a role in a horror film, marking the beginning of her promising artistic career, her innocent charm captivating audiences far and wide. As her star began to rise, Saya quickly won hearts through numerous television appearances. Recognizing her potential, a prestigious talent management agency recruited her, eager to provide comprehensive training. For a moment it seemed as if her dreams were within reach. But just as a bright future appeared on the horizon, disaster struck. On Friday, October 4th, 2013, while others eagerly anticipated the weekend, 18-year-old Saya found herself engulfed in anxiety. Her heart raced at the sight of a message from her ex-boyfriend, Charles Thomas Ikunaga. He requested to meet her one last time. Ikunaga, at 21, was 3 years her senior, and their history was fraught with complications. Their relationship had blossomed 2 years earlier on Facebook, evolving into a long-distance romance. Yet, this love story lasted only a year before unraveling. Just 6 months later, as spring blossomed, Ikunaga's obsession began to spiral out of control. He bombarded Saya with relentless messages, pleading for reconciliation, crossing the line from affection to harassment. This torment continued, growing more intense as October approached. With each recollection of their time together, memories of pain surged within Saya, solidifying her resolve to reject his advances. However, her steadfastness only fueled Ikunaga's desperation. His messages turned sinister, filled with threats of violence, declaring he would kill her. Saya was left in a state of fear and anxiety, a dark cloud hanging over her life. On that fateful day, Saya's heart dropped as she realized Ikunaga, who had claimed to be in another city, was stalking her on her way to school. Her dread deepened as she read his chilling message, revealing his intention to confront her at school. In a state of panic, Saya sought refuge with her teachers, desperately needing help. The school reacted swiftly, reaching out to the nearby Yamatokai police station. However, the police informed them that the matter lay within the jurisdiction of the Mitaka police station. The Mitaka police station, responsible for Saya's residential area, requested the case be transferred. Just 4 days later, on the morning of October 8th, Saya, determined and fearful, took a day off school to accompany her parents to file a report at the Mitaka police station. In a detailed account, Saya Suzuki revealed the turmoil that had engulfed her life, her ongoing anxiety weighing heavily on her spirit. After listening intently to her concerns, the police attempted to reach out to Charles Thomas Ikunaga 3 times, yet their calls went unanswered, echoing the growing tension in the air. After completing the police report, a tense atmosphere momentarily dissipated within the Suzuki family. Trusting the authorities to manage the situation, they each returned to their daily routines, clinging to a fragile sense of normalcy. Saya's parents hurried to their respective workplaces, while she made her way back to school. As the school bell rang, signaling the end of the day, a heavy heart accompanied her exit. Torn between a longing for police protection and an unsettling fear of the unknown, uncertainty clouded her thoughts. At 4:51 p.m. upon arriving home, Saya took a moment to call the police station, reporting her safe arrival. The officer on the other end of the line exhaled a sigh of relief, unaware of the impending tragedy that awaited. Then, just 4 minutes later, at 4:55 p.m., the tranquility of the police station shattered with an urgent emergency call. Saya had been brutally attacked, her body lying motionless in a pool of blood, her life hanging by a thread. Without hesitation, police forces surged to the scene. The incident unfolded in the seemingly peaceful Inokashira district of Mitaka City, where rows of detached houses stood witness to the horror that had just occurred. There, on the street, 18-year-old Saya lay in dire condition, her future slipping away. Rushed to the hospital, every second counted as medical staff fought desperately to save her. Meanwhile, the police swiftly cordoned off the area, ready to delve into the investigation. Through meticulous examination of the blood patterns at the scene, detectives began to piece together the harrowing sequence of events. The attack had occurred right at the steps of her home. In a desperate bid for survival, she had attempted to flee toward the main road, but tragically, her assailant pursued her mercilessly, continuing to stab her as she ran for her life. After committing this heinous act, the perpetrator vanished into the shadows, leaving behind no weapon, only a scene of devastation. The police wasted no time, launching a manhunt operation centered around Saya's home, determined to catch the monster who had shattered her life. With urgency, officers fanned out in all directions, establishing checkpoints at key traffic intersections. But despite the frantic efforts of the medical team at the hospital, Saya's injuries proved too severe, and she succumbed to her wounds. Leaving a world engulfed in grief, the forensic report would later unveil a heartbreaking reality. Saya had endured a total of 11 cuts and stab wounds to her neck and abdomen. Most shockingly, her carotid artery had been completely severed, leading to her tragic demise from excessive blood loss. Amidst the urgency of the investigation, the person who reported the crime emerged as a 52-year-old woman residing near Saya's home. With a voice trembling from the horror she had witnessed, the neighbor recalled that nightmarish moment as it unfolded before her eyes. On that tragic afternoon, the piercing screams for help cut through the neighborhood, echoing in the silence. A neighbor rushed outside, her heart racing, and immediately recognized Saya Suzuki in her school uniform. She sprinted to the scene, only to be confronted with a horrific sight. Saya lay motionless, her body surrounded by a pool of blood. Her face was as pale as a ghost, eyes wide open, filled with desperation. In a moment that would haunt the witness forever, Saya attempted to rise, but the neighbor, fearing further injury, cautioned her to remain still. In a frantic effort to provide some semblance of comfort, the neighbor dashed home to retrieve a wool blanket, gently laying it over Saya's still form. Meanwhile, another neighbor, drawn to the chaos, pointed and shouted urgently. "That man!" she cried, indicating a figure retreating into the distance. Clad in dark clothing with a purple headband, he held a small knife, disappearing from sight, leaving terror in his wake. The neighbors felt an instinctual urge to pursue the fleeing figure, but others intervened, warning that chasing him could lead to more danger. As she spoke to the police, the witness's tears flowed freely, reflecting the profound shock and sorrow that enveloped the Suzuki family. She described the Suzukis as a tightly knit and loving family, recounting how she had watched Saya blossom from an innocent child into a beautiful young woman. With a trembling voice, she confessed that she had never seen the assailant before, her heart heavy with disbelief over the tragic turn of events. In a chilling twist, mere moments after the attack, someone took to the internet to claim responsibility for the horrific act. It was none other than Charles Thomas Ikunaga, Saya's ex-boyfriend. He not only posted intimate photos of Saya, but also included a chilling statement. "The victim wasn't chosen randomly. There was bad blood between us." This cold proclamation laid bare the brutal nature of the crime. Just an hour and a half later, at 6:30 p.m., police were alerted to a suspicious figure in a nearby residential area. Approximately half a mile from the Suzuki home, they encountered a man, barefoot and stained with blood. It was Charles Thomas Ikunaga. Officers swiftly surrounded him, apprehending him without resistance. As the investigation unfolded, it became evident that Charles Thomas Ikunaga was of Japanese-Filipino descent, born in 1992 in Manila. He had been brought to Kyoto, Japan in 1993, just as he was learning to walk. Though the move to Japan was meant to herald a new beginning, fate had other plans for this mixed-race child. Instead of a brighter future, Charles's life would be marked by tragedy and turmoil, culminating in the heartbreaking events of that fateful day. The shadows of his past loomed large, and the dark path he chose would forever alter the lives of those around him, leaving an indelible mark on a community and a family shattered by loss. Charles Thomas Ikunaga's life spiraled deeper into darkness as tensions at home escalated. His parents frequently clashed, filling their small living space with anguish. The atmosphere was suffocating, and when they divorced when Charles was only 4, the tragedy of his childhood became complete. In the wake of his divorce, Ikunaga's mother became increasingly distant, often leaving her son isolated at home for days on end. In a harrowing struggle for survival, the young boy found himself reduced to begging for food at nearby convenience stores, a stark contrast to the life he had once known. As the years rolled on, Ikunaga transformed into a tall young man, standing at 5 feet 11 inches with a solid build. Friends likened him to a character plucked straight from the pages of a manga, an uncanny charisma emanating from him that felt almost otherworldly. His personality, interests, and demeanor seemed to echo the traits of beloved anime characters, an allure that drew attention wherever he went. After leaving school, Ikunaga began to carve out a living for himself through part-time work in Kyoto at the age of 19, navigating adulthood amidst the shadows of his past. Fate intervened when he crossed paths with Saya through Facebook. Her pure beauty and vibrant spirit captured Ikunaga's heart almost instantly. Despite the miles that separated them, they nurtured an online relationship that seemed destined for something more. Ikunaga made frequent trips to Mitaka to meet Saya, secretly gathering information about her life, including her home address. Yet, beneath the surface, the scars from his tumultuous childhood festered, breeding intense insecurities that haunted him. As a truck driver earning a modest income, Ikunaga felt perpetually unworthy of Saya. To shield himself from those feelings of inadequacy, he crafted a false identity, portraying himself as an exemplary student at a prestigious private university. Fluent in English and boasting an array of academic accolades, Ikunaga's fabrications ensnared Saya, who believed his every word. But as time passed, the cracks in their relationship began to widen, exacerbated by Ikunaga's involvement with another girl while still dating Saya. This betrayal hit Saya like a sledgehammer, leading her to make the painful decision to end their relationship. She set her sights on studying abroad in 2012, a move that Ikunaga could not accept. In a desperate bid to control the situation, Ikunaga issued a chilling threat, warning that he would release Saya's private photos if she dared to break up with him. Despite his intimidation tactics, Saya stood firm in her resolve, unaware that a festering seed of hatred was taking root in Ikunaga's heart. The spring of 2013 brought the news of Saya's return to Japan after completing her studies abroad, reigniting Ikunaga's tumultuous emotions. Thoughts of rekindling their relationship consumed his mind, fueling a dangerous obsession that threatened to spiral out of control. Saya Suzuki met Ikunaga's advances with an icy indifference. Each rejection stung, deepening his disappointment and igniting a simmering hurt within him. As he faced the painful reality that his dreams of reconciliation lay in ruins, a dark desperation began to take hold, leading him down a treacherous path of dangerous thoughts. With a sinister plan taking shape in his mind, Charles Thomas Ikunaga embarked on a methodical preparation. He dedicated himself to building physical strength, spending countless hours at the gym, engaging in high-intensity workouts that honed his body into a weapon. In tandem with his physical training, Ikunaga began documenting motivational notes on his phone, a chilling testament to his growing resolve. These actions revealed a chilling premeditation, as if he were crafting a blueprint for the violence he envisioned. By March 2013, he made a calculated entrance into Mitaka, shrouded in secrecy. In a chilling act of premeditation, Charles Thomas Ikunaga secretly trailed Saya Suzuki, lurking in the shadows near her home. He meticulously observed the daily rhythms of the Suzuki family, calculating his move. Once he confirmed that Saya was alone, he seized the opportunity, donning gloves as he broke in, ready to unleash terror upon the unsuspecting victim. Panic-stricken, Saya cried out, pleading for mercy. In a cold display of control, Ikunaga imposed a sinister condition. She must maintain daily contact with him. Faced with this menacing ultimatum and fearing the exposure of her private photos, Saya felt she had no choice but to comply. Convinced that appeasing him might buy her some time, Saya chose not to go to the police. Days turned into weeks, and Ikunaga soon noticed that she had indeed started responding to his messages. This fleeting reassurance provided him with a false sense of peace. As the weeks passed, Ikunaga returned to Kyoto, immersing himself in work. But his sense of control was shattered 3 months later, in June, when Saya abruptly blocked him, cutting off all communication. Anger surged within him, mingling with a feeling of impotence that drove him to contemplate further action. Yet, a sudden spike in his workload restrained him from acting immediately. Instead, he opted to register for an account on an adult website, laying the groundwork for his malicious intentions, even as he plotted his next move. By September, with the burden of work lifted, Ikenaga set his sights on returning to Mitaka. Prior to enacting his dark plan, he invited his closest friend out for drinks, perhaps seeking solace for his tormented soul in a seemingly innocuous farewell. With deep emotion, he confided in his friend about his plans to move to America for several years, lamenting how their chances to meet would dwindle. His voice was laced with nostalgia, masking the sinister intentions that lay beneath the surface. Ikenaga spoke of wanting to say a final goodbye to his ex-girlfriend. Unbeknownst to his friend, who nodded in sympathy, these confessions were steeped in a darkness that would soon unravel. The drinks flowed late into the night, obscuring the true nature of Ikenaga's thoughts. As dawn broke, Ikenaga stood to bid farewell, a pivotal moment that marked his descent into irrevocable darkness. On September 28th, while traversing Musashino City, he made a fateful stop at a local convenience store. There he purchased a 5-inch knife, the grim instrument of his horrific plan. Starting on October 2nd, Ikenaga unleashed a torrent of fury, posting a multitude of Saya's private photos on his newly created account, each accompanied by venomous messages. Saya, having appeared in several television dramas and possessing a modicum of fame, soon became the subject of an online frenzy as these intimate photos spread like wildfire. Ikenaga posted a total of 67 images, many of which were originally shared in trust between lovers, never foreseeing their catastrophic exposure. But Ikenaga's malicious campaign did not end there. Anticipating that the Suzuki family would be on high alert after his initial assault, he reserved a hotel room near Saya's residence. This strategic move allowed him to closely monitor the family's daily life, while meticulously plotting ways to evade any security measures they had in place. To his twisted satisfaction, Ikenaga discovered that the Suzuki family's routines remained unchanged, presenting him with the opportunity he had been waiting for. On the afternoon of October 8th, Charles Thomas Ikenaga seized his opportunity. He stealthily ascended to the second floor of the house adjacent to Saya Suzuki's home. Through an unlocked window, he successfully infiltrated the Suzuki residence. With calculated precision, he concealed himself in a first-floor closet, biding his time as he awaited Saya's return from school. But Ikenaga was not idle during this tense wait. He relentlessly communicated with the outside world, staying connected with a friend through his phone. In a moment of chilling anticipation, he called the Suzuki home to check if anyone was inside. After confirming the house was empty, he unleashed a flurry of anxious messages to his friend, revealing his inner turmoil. "I can't decide. I didn't originally plan this, but somehow I ended up in the closet. I want to get out but can't. I want to get home safely. It's over." Between 1:27 p.m. and 2:30 p.m., Ikenaga sent a staggering 56 messages, each one a window into his deep conflict and rising anxiety. Initially, his friend dismissed these frantic words, but as the barrage of messages continued, the gravity of the situation began to settle in. With a gentle tone, he attempted to dissuade Ikenaga, hoping to coax him back from the edge. Yet, this intervention failed to penetrate Ikenaga's resolve. He had become ensnared in the scenario he had orchestrated, unable to find a way out. At 4:51 p.m., Saya returned home, her mood lightened by the end of the school day. Earlier that morning, she had filed a police report with her parents at Mitaka Police Station. In a moment of lowered guard as she reached her front door and began to call the police to confirm her safe arrival, tragedy struck. Ikenaga erupted from the closet like a wild animal, launching a frenzied attack aimed at Saya's neck and stomach. In sheer panic, she attempted to escape, her desperate screams piercing the quiet street, mingling with the chaotic sounds of her struggle. But as her strength waned, she collapsed onto the pavement outside her home. Yet, driven by an insatiable rage, Ikenaga did not relent. He continued to plunge the knife ruthlessly into the fragile body of the young girl. After executing his savage act, he fled the scene, leaving behind a life slowly slipping away into a pool of blood. As Ikenaga escaped, his friend reached out, desperate for an explanation of the unfolding horror. Without a hint of remorse, Ikenaga coldly confessed, "I was too rushed to hear her voice clearly. When I bumped into her, she screamed and ran outside. I immediately chased after her and acted on impulse." Faced with this terrifying admission, his friend urged him to turn himself in, but Ikunaga merely fell silent before abruptly hanging up. Shockingly, instead of expressing any guilt, Ikunaga informed his mother of his brutal actions and even took to social media to boast about it. His behavior revealed a twisted psychology, as if he sought validation for his savage act. Afterward, Charles Thomas Ikunaga aimlessly wandered the streets until he was ultimately discovered and apprehended by the police. 3 days after the brutal incident, police uncovered the murder weapon, lying abandoned about a third of a mile from the crime scene. They also found one of Charles Thomas Ikunaga's shoes on the second-floor balcony of the Suzuki residence, a damning piece of evidence indicating that he had illegally broken into Saya's home. A year later, in July 2014, the case finally made its way to trial at the Tachikawa branch of the Tokyo District Court, where the gravity of the charges would soon unfold. The accused, Charles Thomas Ikunaga, faced serious charges including murder, breaking and entering, and other heinous crimes. As he entered the courtroom dressed in a black sports shirt, his eyes darted nervously around the room, and he licked his lips, betraying the tension coursing through him. During the prosecutor's opening statement, Ikunaga maintained a fixed gaze on the prosecutor, blinking incessantly as the details of his alleged crimes were laid bare. The prosecutor painted a picture of betrayal, arguing that Ikunaga had deceived and wronged Saya throughout their tumultuous relationship. When Saya suggested they break up, Ikunaga not only refused to accept her decision, but escalated his behavior, harassing her, assaulting her, and even publishing her private photos. Ultimately, this toxic spiral led him to plot her murder. Such actions, the prosecutor asserted, were clear indicators of a profound lack of humanity. In stark contrast, Ikunaga sat in the defendant's chair, his face devoid of emotion, as if the accusations held no relevance to him. However, when his defense attorney brought up his childhood abuse, Ikunaga's demeanor shifted. His body trembled slightly, and he lowered his head, his face rigid with discomfort, revealing that the mention of his traumatic past had struck a deep chord within him. Saya's father took the stand as a witness. He recounted the harrowing morning of the incident, when his daughter had anxiously asked him what would happen if something terrible befell her. He had assured her that he would stop at nothing to avenge her. Now her words echoed with a haunting sense of prophecy. This realization left her parents engulfed in heartbreak and anger. Their daughter had been their beacon of hope, and now they were plunged into a darkness they could scarcely comprehend. When questioned about his thoughts during the crime, Ikunaga claimed he felt confused. He stated that he was unsure whether he genuinely desired to harm Saya, expressing an unsettling detachment from the gravity of his actions. While he acknowledged the family's pain, he showed no empathy, nor did he offer any apologies when pressed by the judge. When asked about the release of the private photos, Ikunaga insisted he did it to flaunt their intimate relationship, claiming it was an effort to preserve evidence of their love while simultaneously seeking to undermine Saya's self-esteem. After 10 grueling days of trial, the court reached its verdict. The judge condemned Charles Thomas Ikunaga's actions as profoundly selfish and devoid of remorse, declaring him unworthy of leniency. Consequently, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison for his numerous crimes. The judge clarified that this sentence took into consideration Ikunaga's youth and potential for rehabilitation. In response, Saya's parents expressed their deep disappointment and dissatisfaction with the verdict, feeling that justice had not been served. The family of Saya Suzuki felt that the sentence handed down to her murderer did not adequately reflect the severity of his crime or the profound pain he had inflicted upon them. In stark contrast, Charles Thomas Ikunaga's defense team argued that the sentence was excessively harsh. They contended that the court had failed to fully consider Ikunaga's tumultuous upbringing, characterized by domestic violence and neglect. The defense suggested that a sentence of 15 years would have been more appropriate, given the circumstances. Both sides expressed their dissatisfaction with the verdict, leading them to file appeals. Public outrage was further ignited by Ikunaga's despicable act of distributing Saya's private photographs, prompting widespread condemnation. Citizens across Japan began to rally for change, viewing Ikunaga's actions as a blatant violation of privacy. The public's outcry fueled discussions around the need for legislation to safeguard individuals from such violations. In November 2014, a significant legislative shift occurred in Japan. Laws were enacted that not only addressed private acts but also criminalized the distribution of photos without consent, particularly those of a sexually provocative nature, regardless of whether the subject was clothed. Under this new law, offenders faced the possibility of 3 years in prison or a fine of up to 500,000 yen, roughly equivalent to $5,000. 2 years after the incident, on August 7, 2015, prosecutors took further action against Ikunaga, filing another lawsuit. The case was brought before the Tachikawa Branch Court on March 16, 2016. Ikunaga entered the courtroom dressed in a black suit and white shirt, striding purposefully to the defendant's seat before sitting down in silence, his demeanor contemplative. Inside the courtroom, he seemed lost in thought. The defense attorney vehemently opposed the new lawsuit, arguing that the prosecution's decision to pursue further charges after an existing verdict was an abuse of power. The defense further asserted that Saya had exhibited carelessness by voluntarily sharing her private photos, suggesting that the blame should not rest solely on Ikunaga, but that the victim bore some responsibility as well. Ultimately, the court announced its verdict. While Ikunaga was found guilty of multiple charges, the judge upheld the original 22-year prison sentence, affirming that there was no error in the previous ruling, issued 4 years after the tragic incident in January 2017. The Tokyo High Court reaffirmed this decision, asserting that the sentence was appropriate given the circumstances. As news of the ruling spread, many who had followed Saya's case felt a deep sense of indignation at the outcome. The response to the police's handling of the case was equally critical. Before the tragedy, Saya had reached out to law enforcement on 2 separate occasions, yet her pleas went unanswered, failing to prevent the impending disaster. This left the public questioning whether the police had truly fulfilled their duty to protect citizens. Confronted with such scrutiny, authorities evaded accountability, claiming it was difficult to respond when reporters approached Ikunaga for an interview in prison. When confronted about his feelings for Saya Suzuki, Charles Thomas Ikunaga responded with a chilling conviction, declaring that he had never loved her. He articulated a harrowing belief that Saya was the source of his suffering, and that the only way to escape his own torment was to extinguish her life. In a disturbing reflection, he confessed that if he were given the chance to relive those moments, he would make the same choice again. This tragic incident prompted Japan to reevaluate its laws concerning stalking behavior. In response, authorities increased patrols near the homes of stalking victims and instituted mandatory surveillance and investigations into the residences of suspected perpetrators. The case of Saya Suzuki lingered in the collective consciousness, leaving behind a multitude of unanswered questions and painful lessons for Japanese society. At just 18 years old, her vibrant life was abruptly cut short, extinguishing a future filled with dreams and aspirations. This tragedy represented more than a singular loss. It marked the sorrow of an entire family. Furthermore, this case shone a light on deeper societal issues, such as dating violence, online harassment, and the glaring inadequacies in protecting potential victims. Today, Saya's story remains a haunting reminder, etched in the memories of those who knew her and those who were affected. It serves as a painful testament to the costs of complacency and a lack of vigilance in safeguarding the young and vulnerable. Yet, it has also ignited a relentless pursuit within society to enhance protective measures for individuals like Saya, ensuring that they can thrive in the warmth of their youth without fear. And that brings us to the conclusion of today's case. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on our future investigations. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episodes.